Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you the last generation of the classic Eclipse in a 43rd scale from Norev, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the Eclipse. Sit back, follow me, and enjoy the video. Today I've brought you not one but two Eclipse in this video. Both models are from the mid-2000s, so their box is the same as the Norev image of the time. Totally average, clean, simple styling. I love this era of Norev. But let's take a closer look at these two models and take them out of their boxes. First, we look at the Spider version. I really like the design of the model, and it's a huge plus from the manufacturer that they have produced a removable soft top for the model. The headlights, fog lights, and tail lights are very nice in this size. I think Norev has put together a very high-quality model with the Eclipse. I have seen much inferior examples from them. The chassis is detailed, but only the rear exhaust is silver. We've seen better than this. We now come to the second model of the coupe. The details here are just as nice, and the weak point is the same as the Spider. However, what I noticed on both models is that the paint on the rim sticks. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident, and I have seen this on other models. Regardless, the rims are nice, but this can only be remedied by repainting for those who would mind. I think the interior of the Spider is particularly nice. The detailing is good. I like the contrast between the upholstery and the paint. I like the silver highlights on the small details, the Mitsubishi logo on the steering wheel, and the speaker for the sound system on the back seat. And what I really like is that the front seat's rear cover are painted black. Now let's take a look at the interior of the coupe. The interior of the coupe is also very nice, but the Spider is closer to my taste. The orange paint is nice and in good harmony with the orange interior with the white accessories, but then the rear seats could have been in that color. The details are very nice. The Eclipse lettering on the back of the hat rack is nice, but I somehow like this one less of the two models, and it's the only one I would have bought. In any case, I'm very happy to have gotten these two models at a pretty reasonable price because neither of them is a dense piece these days, and so at least they are in pairs. Now for my opinion on the two models. This model is very rare, and actually this generation Eclipse was only available from Norev. This is the only scale that exists so far, and I don't think it will be released in any other scale because this car has become a lesser known and not very successful model. Unfortunately, the market for other generations of Eclipse is not so easy to find, so if you like Mitsubishi or collect Japanese cars, I think this model is a good buy because it is relatively cheap and a very nice model for the size. There are some minor flaws with this model, and it may not be the most iconic Eclipse, but I can still recommend it to everyone as it is a pleasant disappointment for me. Now, join me as we learn more about the history of the Mitsubishi Eclipse from the beginning to the present day. In 1970, Chrysler bought a 15% stake in Mitsubishi as the oil crisis of the early 1970s increased demand for economical, reliable Japanese cars. By the 1980s, Chrysler was importing 100,000 of Mitsubishi cars into the US, but there were a few hurdles as the Japanese manufacturers wanted their own car dealerships so that the money would go straight to them. If their demands were not met, America could forget about Japanese cars. The US had to give in, but they didn't want to have a negative impact on the US car market, so they introduced an import quota that determined how many cars could be imported into the country in a year. So Chrysler had to find a way to sell Mitsubishi cars to their own showroom and get the import quota. In 1985, the solution was found, and Chrysler and Mitsubishi jointly founded Diamond Star Motors. The plan was very simple. A car was released under several brands, and so the Starion badge engineering version of the Chrysler, Plymouth, and Dodge Conquest was born. These cars were all made in the same factory and differed only in minor details so that they could legally sell Japanese cars without reaching the quota limit. The Conquest, based on the Starion, was still made in Japan, but later it was more convenient to build it in America, so the Eclipse was a model made specifically for the American market and was now made in Normal, Illinois at DSM's factory. The Eclipse was essentially the export model that was shipped all over the world, and the Laser and Talon were mostly sold domestically, with many of these cars making it to Europe, for example, but mostly by gray imports. The first generation of the Eclipse, produced from 1989 to 1994, was the direct rival of the ST-185 Celica, a car that also had a huge engine range. In terms of engines, the 1.8-liter 8-valve engine was the standard version, followed by the legendary 2-liter 4G63 naturally aspirated engines, and topped off with the 4G63T, also known from the later Lancer Evolution. It was available with front and all-wheel drive. In 1993, the model received a facelift, which replaced the pop-up headlights to normal headlamps. I think this is the lamest facelift Mitsubishi has ever done. In 1994, the second generation arrived. This model was the only Eagle Talon left in existence. This model was most successful in the first part of Fast and Furious, but it was not nearly as iconic as, say, a Supra or RX-7 or possibly an S14-200SX. The base model here was a Chrysler drivetrain, but apart from this engine, it was only available with Mitsubishi engines. Here, only 2-liter engines were available, with the addition of a 2.4-liter engine, but the top of the range was still the turbocharged 4G63T. In terms of drivetrains, it was available with front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. It was the first model to be available as a convertible and was called the Eclipse Spider. This was the last model produced by Diamond Star Motors. In 1999, production ceased, giving way to the third generation. In 1999, the third generation arrived, which was no longer DSM, but MMNA, that is born in the same factory under the management of Mitsubishi Motors North America. Many of us may know this car in its Spider version from the movie Too Fast and Too Furious, but the success of the movie didn't help this generation of the Eclipse. Unfortunately, at the time, American Mitsubishis must have been using some pretty harsh mind-altering drugs because they were responsible for some outstandingly ugly Mitsubishis. Following tradition, this model was also available in coupe and Spider versions. In terms of engines, the new generation also saw the introduction of a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder as the entry-level and a 3-liter V6, which was also available in the GTO or 3000 GT, but this was the entry-level. This model was only available with front-wheel drive, and an electric prototype was produced in 2001, but it never went into production. This third series was produced until 2005. The fourth series was launched in 2005. This model is also the star of our video. The styling is a little more dignified than the third generation, but I still can't call it a pretty car. The front end looks like the snout of a dumb fish, and the rear reminds me of the first generation Audi TT, but overall the silhouette of the car is very similar. Of course, there were two versions of this, the coupe and the Spider, but I prefer the latter. Even this model was only available with front-wheel drive, and the entry level was the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine, and a 3.8-liter V6 with 265 horsepower. These engines now had MIVEC variable valve timing. A manual gearbox was fitted as standard, but all engines were available with automatic transmission. Even the top-spec version wasn't a car with outstanding driving performance. The 7-second 0 to 100 km/h sprint was about average for this class, and the 240 km/h top speed was average too. This is probably due to the car's heavy weight, as the top of the range models weigh over 1,700 kilograms, making it more of a pleasant GT than a sports model. Sales of the 4th generation were completed in 2012. After a long hiatus, the Eclipse name has been revived in an unworthy SUV design, in line with today's trends, and unfortunately it was a huge disappointment for many of us, and I won't comment on that. This brings us to the end of the video. Thank you for your kind attention. I want to know your opinion. Please write in the comments section if you like this generation Eclipse or not, and which is your favorite Mitsubishi model. Thank you for watching. If you like my video, please like it. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you don't want to miss out on similar content, please hit the bell icon. See you in the next video.